Thanks so much for joining, everyone. This is QAComplete 101 for SmartBear Academy. So today here in the studio out of Somerville, Massachusetts, we have Param Chopra, who's one of our technical engineers here on QAComplete. He's been working with a lot of our test products for quite some time now, very experienced in all of our test products, and he'll be leading us through today's session. And to introduce myself, my name is Cully. I'm one of the Enterprise Customer Success Managers here at SmartBear. Some of you I might have worked with before, and if not, really nice to meet you all. Both of us are dedicated here to help you guys get this tool up and running as quickly as possible. And if you don't know who your specific Customer Success Manager is, definitely please feel free to reach out to your either account manager or the support link, and we'll make sure to get you in touch with the right person. So before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick overview of SmartBear as a whole. Some of you might own more of our products, some of you might have just picked up QAComplete. So just to get kind of a feel for who we are, we have about over 7 million users across the US, both open source products including SoapUI and Swagger are originated from SmartBear. Through almost 200 countries. And we're actually headquartered in Boston, Mass, which is where Param and I sit. But we do have 7 offices globally. We just expanded to India and to Australia to accommodate those time zones as well. When we were founded in 2009. And we're really just, across our products, are trying to improve the quality at every stage of the development life cycle. So I'm kind of just going to run through not this entire slide because it's kind of a lot to look at, but to get kind of a feel for where QAComplete fits into the bigger whole picture of our products. We span the spectrum everywhere from development through tests and all the way through the operations side, both on the API layer and the UI layer. And as you can see, QAComplete kind of fits right in the middle there, managing as that central hub. And can be used for both UI tests as well as manual tests automated. You can even take SoapUI tests and put those into QAComplete. And kind of the theme that SmartBear revolves around is reusability. So through a lot of our products, we have a lot of integrations between our products that allow you to reuse work that you've already done, whether it's reuse from your own team or from other teams, so that you're not having to repeat steps and recreate the wheel every time. It's a big time saver for a lot of our customers. Taking parts of, say, taking their SoapUI scripts and turning them into a service virtualization, or plenty of examples of reuse. So just something to think about. And if you have any interest in kind of exploring any of these further, definitely, all of them have a lot of information on the website, but, talking in person is usually the most effective. So just give us a call, and we're happy to discuss it. And also just along the bottom here, integrations, we don't want you to just have to use SmartBear products. We really think that, you should be able to plug and play with any of the tools that you're already using. We're not trying to rip and replace any of the solutions you already have in place. So, we do integrate with pretty much, anything you can think of: Selenium, Visual Studio, GitHub, and so on. So now, this is the QAComplete 101 agenda, and we'll get started. I'll let Param kind of walk through this, and then we'll get going and dive into the tool.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Today, this will serve as just an introductory class to QAComplete, with the idea of focusing on how to perhaps set up some workflow initially in your test management process. So what we'll do first is we'll take a look at the UI. I'll kind of point out some of the basic features there, what to look out for in context of releases, although that can certainly be applied across the entire tool. From there, we'll also accompany that with saying, okay, we'll show how to build a sample release in QAComplete, perhaps break that release down into some of the requirements, and then finally, of course, building test cases, which I can talk about for both manual and automated sense. Then, after that, we want to talk perhaps about traceability. We can link all the data together, which is definitely going to be serving as a backbone for your reporting. So that's definitely going to be at least a way to get started. in using the tool. It's by no means a comprehensive review of the entire product, but we certainly will have follow-up Academy sessions highlighting more complex features of QAComplete. And if you ever have any questions, again, as Gur said, feel free to reach out to your customer success manager. What we'll first do, as I said earlier, is I'll quickly speak at a high level about some of these items up here. Very quickly, what you're looking at in this screen, before I do that, if some of you are let's say new to the tool, this is our dashboard screen. You can see a high-level overview of your current progress thus far over various different metrics. But I'll maybe talk a little more about that. I want to talk about reporting closer to the end of this class. Because some of these reports, like let's say a test runs by requirement, we want to kind of figure out how we got to a report like that, right? How exactly do we fill in the information in QAComplete to take advantage of this dashboard? So let's go ahead and dive in and start with releases. So what you have here is what is referred to as a listing screen for a module in QAComplete. We have our list of releases right here. You can see our list of records in general. And right above it, we have an organizational pane where you could look at your data per project. And QAComplete stores data at a per project basis. That's the highest level of organization that you have. So you can switch between projects very easily in the GUI. And within each project, you can usually organize your data by a folder structure. From there, I can also go ahead and group my data up to 3 different custom fields, as well as taking advantage of our filtering and search options to also narrow down the amount of data I want to look at. And just to clear up any kind of confusion, I know I've talked to a lot of prospects and customers who have certain ideas about, where did my data go if they're, let's say, looking in a certain folder or grouping. All the options in this pane, the whole point of them is to just limit what you see below. All right, so think of them as all just ways to give you a subset of all of your data. So if you're ever in this tool and by any chance can't find your data, I'd recommend checking what folder you're in, what filter you have, let's say, on, and you can, again, it'll usually say something over here. You have a certain temporary filter or, let's say, save filter used, or as well as your grouping. And if you clear all of those things, you'll usually be able to see all of your data. I just wanted to say that because I've seen that a lot in my time here. And I've never really taken the time to address it in a formal sense on a webinar, so good for me for doing that. All right. So the idea of the releases module is to allow you to set up a release workflow that best fits your team's needs. So whether you're perhaps following something more on the waterfall side of things or doing things very sequentially, then we could set up a release workflow such as the one I have here, right? Where I have my parent release and I'm enumerating in my sub-releases. Because in QAComplete, I can call these records whatever I would like. So I can totally put some numbers ahead in the title to show that I'm being sequential. Perhaps you're maybe more on the agile side of things when it comes to workflow. You're doing things in quicker iterations, right? Maybe I want to detail that in a deeper level. Again, we can do that in QAComplete to this certain example I have here. Perhaps this is my quarterly release, right? I can break it up into monthly sprints, maybe some weekly bills as well. And these are just examples I built out, for a demo's sake. But again, the idea in general is that we can create up to 3 layers deep of releases and sub-releases in the tool. And free to also call them whenever you would like. So in essence, again, you're able to enact whatever workflow, whatever release iteration style you believe is best at any point in time as well. And even if, let's say, your project changes or maybe your organization is scaling up or trying to migrate workflow, whatever it may be, even in the same project, you can have different types of workflow be occurring. So this is definitely a tool that's going to be able to scale pretty well with your efforts if they are to expand or change. But in general, you would use this screen to create the release or iteration of the version of the software you're testing, right? Create some kind of waypoint to say, okay, this is my, let's say version 13.0 of QAComplete, let's say far in the future, right? I want to be able to say that I've tested it and have certain items related to it. So that's where we create that release record. And the release itself, take a look at a sample one, can also have whatever data you would like in it, right? In general, only required fields here are a status and a title, which pretty much every QAComplete record needs to have. But other than that, I don't think you need to have any of these other fields that you see in front of you here, right? You could easily remove them by going to setup and your system configurations, which if someone wants to see it done specifically, I can of course also do that. But it's very easy to go ahead and change these fields from the GUI. It's also easy to go back in per module, go to Tools, and go to Manage Custom Fields. Here you can create up to 90 different type of custom fields for per record type, ranging from multi-select lists to text fields, data, numeric fields, drop-down lists, so on and so forth. So we're really allowing you to get the most relevant data to you into the tool at any point in time. We're not going to pigeonhole your workflow any kind of way or force you to enter any extra data. You really want to take the opportunity when initially setting up to really maybe get rid of the fields you really don't think you're going to be using and add the fields that are really necessary to your project. Because that way, let's say if you're coming off another process, especially, usually there's a lot of time spent in just learning the language of the other tool or adapting to a new process. So what we said is, okay, let's ease that. Let's make that easier. Let us adapt to you. So you definitely want to take advantage when initially setting up, let's say, a release, to not only consider what your release workflow looks like in a formal sense, but also what information you want each release to have. If you want to track the estimated start or finish dates, if you want to give a description. And ultimately, the reason for creating a release record, other than holding the information that's most valuable to you, is to link that release to our various records in QAComplete so that we can report on our items, right, and report on our progress in a succinct manner. That's definitely something I can touch upon a little bit later in a more formal sense. Looks like there's no questions, which is good, but as Gur said, do feel free to ask any questions at any point in time. I will take periodic breaks to not only take a sip of water here, but also answer your questions, so please ask. All right, so I've talked about customizing this record, and I've talked about creating a release in a customized manner. And so that's, again, at a high level what you want to do. I think from a more nuanced sense, you want to think about how you want to maybe break that release up in terms of its components, whether you want to use requirements or sub-releases to do that. That's certainly up to you. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about requirements. So I said that if you take a look at my release here, I have some requirements linked to the record. And the way I'm using this in my sample is to say, okay, the release of the software I'm testing has certain components I want to test. I'm going to define each component as a requirement, right? Then I can go ahead and link test cases that with those requirements and test as such. And I can create those requirements, again, in a requirements module. And the nice thing about QAComplete's UI is that it definitely flows throughout most of the tool, the exception being our test library, which we'll be soon updating to fit the UI you see now. No worries there. But everything I've talked about in the releases section is also going to apply here. Requirements, right? I can organize my requirements with the above panes. My requirements are below. I can fully customize my requirement record, so on and so forth, in terms of what fields are here, what fields are required, what fields are optional, so on and so forth. You can also even link this to Jira as well. You have a nice integration with Jira. So if you want to go, say, pull your user stories or tasks in as requirements, it's very easy to do so. Or you perhaps also send QAComplete defects back as bugs. And in my time working here, I've seen people use requirements for a lot of different reasons. Some people use them as standalone business requirements. Some people use them in the way I'm using them to break up their releases. Some people don't track their releases in this tool at all. It really, again, is up to you. Another point I want to make is that not only is the functionality of QAComplete designed to allow you to make the most out of the tool, right, streamline it to fit your purposes, but even the modules themselves, right, at the end of the day, we're giving you a record that you can change title of, you can change what data is in the record, you can change how you want to organize it, so on and so forth. So you can really remake any one of those above modules to, again, exactly fit your purposes. Even if maybe you're using requirements or maybe you're using actual tasks not in the way the Word is intending it to be used, that's certainly fine because the record is fully able to be customized and tracked by you, the user. All right. So talk about releases and requirements. And we want to go ahead and link those together, but let's talk about test cases first, then we'll dive into traceability. So this is a bit of an older UI here with the test library. The only thing that's different really now is our organizational pane is on the left-hand side instead of up top. But we have some more actions up top that are have been now placed into our tools button, the new UI. Create a test set, choose fields, fast edit, the actions drop down, et cetera, et cetera. Let's take a look at an individual test case here. QAComplete. So let's see. Very quickly, I do want to point out every record in QAComplete does have an edit history section, something you may want to take note of. Nice public ledger showing you all your changes of the record, when it was changed, who changed it, etc. Test cases themselves can be version controlled, and it's very easy to roll back and forth between a version of the test you want to use. Versions are created anytime you make any changes to the test case definitions you have over here, or furthermore, you can decide what changes you want to make in the edit screen, which is in terms of maybe you want to say certain fields you change there, you don't want a version to be created. Now maybe if I change the assigned to from Christos Porzingis to James Harden, maybe I say I don't want a new version to be created, but maybe if I change the status or maybe if I change the title, I want a new version to be created. So I can also have that level of control if I'd like. And version control is definitely useful because you may want to go back to a passing version of your test case, or you want to maybe go ahead and recreate when your environment was passing with an earlier version of the test versus when it's, let's say, failing now. One example of how I've seen customers use this. Let's take a look at a test case though. So this is a manual test case in QAComplete. And as you can see, by clicking this green plus icon here, it's easy to add new steps, delete steps, or clicking this red up and down arrow here and dragging and dropping, reordering your step. Step is usually made up of a description of the step and of course its expected result. And as you can tell, my feline friend here can totally throw any kind of rich text supported media I want into the test case, cat related or not. So I'm sure you guys will have more serious images here. But regardless, we can get them into the tool. It's also very popular to do this during runtime, which is where let's say people want to paste or upload screenshots into their actual results section. Very easy to do that. Let's say if you have a snipping tool, you can very easily do that. Now, when creating manual test cases, we can certainly add our steps from scratch, but if I have a step that's redundant or very long, or maybe I know I'm using in other test cases, I want to save myself some time, right? I don't want to have to rewrite a common or convoluted step over and over again. So I could search my test library on the right-hand side over here, and find an existing step and make a copy of it to a test I'm making. This is purely a copy. I can click and drag over an open web page, let's say, as many times as I'd like, but also drag over as many steps as I'd like, so on and so forth. And so where people I've seen use this is as follows. They'll use this obviously to save time in not having to rewrite redundant or repeated steps, or convoluted steps, that is. But I've also seen more interesting use cases where people will create testing templates, perhaps associate them into a certain folder, right, that they can then see over here. Then when they want to create a test case, they'll, let's say, go to the template they like by finding it from this bar on the right-hand side, and then they drag and drop any non-unique steps over into the test that they're now creating. So that's also going to save you some time, maybe allow you to also be a little more organized in the types of test cases you have. Just something that I've seen our customers use in the past. Now, that's not the only way to create manual test cases in QAComplete. In fact, it's very easy for me to upload them via CSV or Excel file as well. The actions drop down. Now, another thing I want to talk about, people kind of just see this and they say, oh, great, I'm just going to go ahead and upload my data. And they'll never really do anything in QAComplete beforehand. They'll kind of just upload their Excel sheet and it won't work. And then they'll say, hey, you know why? This is a very difficult process. So right now, I want to definitely clear some things up, make sure this is a smooth process for everyone. We have two types of import profiles in QAComplete. One is, in fact, the best way for me to do this is to go to our nice documentation, which we can reach directly from the tool, Help Center, it's right below your name when you're signed in. And what I want to do is show you how to upload test cases in the QAComplete. And I like the documentation here. It's got a nice, good set of images. Definitely make this at least clear to me and what data should look like. So the first import profile is one where you have multiple steps in a cell. That's your test case. Each test case is one row, right? And so it looks something like this. In general, the only field, the field you do not want to upload is the ID field, because we create an ID for you anytime you create a record by uploading, add new, creating an API, so on and so forth, right? But from there, any other field that you want to put in, because you don't have to put in all the fields, just your required ones, any other fields you want to fill up, you want to put in this kind of manner. So this is one import profile. Okay, and as you can see, what happens is once you go to the wizard, you click upload, it's going to allow you to make sure that if we made any mistakes, you can go ahead and manually match, make sure that the field in QAComplete matches the right data in your CSV or Excel file. So we give you that chance to edit it one more time. And as you can see, this is what will happen, right? Now the second import profile, which is I think what our export defaults to, but you can have, if you're using SAS, you can ask support to switch your import profile. And if you're on premises, you can do that yourself. But we have the other type of import profile where you have multiple, so the number of rows that is your test equals the number of steps in your test, right? So you can see, for example, I have my title repeated here, status repeated, so on and so forth. But the steps, I have my individual ones, right? So maybe if I look at this tone selection kazoo test, right? We can see its individual steps. We can see the individual expected results. And we can see it's grouped by the step sequence, something you definitely want to use. But then from there, everything else could just be the same. So if you can, and those are import profiles we can go ahead and use. So before you try and upload your profile, take a look at this documentation. It's under the, again, you can get it from the Help Center link in QAComplete, and it's under User Guide, Test Management, Test Library, and you go ahead and see the link. And you want to consider, because maybe you're not, obviously, maybe your data is a little more customized or in a different format than these two profiles, so you want to see which one is best to go to. But in general, I've seen people can usually make this transition. And once you get into one of those profiles, it's really relatively simple to bulk upload all these test cases. You know, I certainly did that. I did not write 549 test cases from scratch. Don't have enough patience to do that. So I definitely uploaded mine in bulk. Again, you want to go to the actions dropdown, click import test file, CSV file or Excel, and you want to make sure that your import profile is one that's going to fit with our standards. And B, in general, you want to make sure that any fields you want to throw in, you have to make sure are created in an order that you want in beforehand. And I only said it because you don't have to have it in the right order, but if you want us to be really seamless for you, at least for me, for my sake, I like to have the exact order I have here in my listing screen for my, let's say, test library. I want that Excel sheet to have the exact same order, because it's going to be a better sanity check for me to make sure that everything is going in the right place. But that's definitely an important thing in the test library. Now, finally finish up creating manual test cases. We also have an Excel file. I just talked about that. We have a REST API. That's right. So a REST API one can use, and you can really use this to import or extract any amount of data from within or out the tool. And in fact, if you're using SAS, you can find both of these definitions, these links in our documentation. If you go to APIs under the developer section, and if you're using SAS QAComplete, it's literally just going to be this address. If you're using on-premises, this part of the address will be your specific URL, but the rest of the URL, REST API, Swagger Index, it's all the same. And this is another way to look at our REST API and interact with it. It's a nice kind of like live documentation where, maybe you want to, I want to create a test case using the API, let's say, right? I could create a new test. I can click that. It'll show me what my post will respond with, so what data I can get back. I want to parse that, do other things with the test case. And it'll show me what I need for my body, right? Title, status, and anything like that. The array of custom fields that I have. And then if you want to make it an array post, very easy for me to manually do that. Or what? Go ahead and make a little sample post over there using the fields provided for me. So I'm obviously not saying you want to always use this to interact with our API. It's a nice way to get started. But maybe wait for a manual tester also play around with something that's otherwise maybe reserved for scripting, right? But of course, you could also go ahead and script and use this and maybe transfer records from one tool to another, integrate in your own way, so on and so forth. But I digress. Just wanted to point this out as a cool feature we have available for our documentation. All right. So talking about creating manual test cases, we want to talk about creating automated test cases, and then we'll go ahead and run a test case. So let's see. QAComplete, for those of you who are doing automation, I'm sure some of the audience are definitely doing so. We're not running the automated script directly. We're running a test agent that launches your script of choice. So what you want to do is you first go to our test host section. This is where you will give us information on the machines or VMs running your automated test cases. Go ahead and download a test agent to your test host, which again, just log onto the internet, go into QAComplete, click that link, and you're giving our agent the authentication information to log in to QAComplete and to log into your machine or VM. And if you're using like Active Directory, like I know we do at SmartBear office here, you want to specify your domain. Like I'll do AD/Param Chopra, for example. So whatever your domain is, you want to definitely, if you're using that, you want to make sure it's specified and give it to the agent. But that's it, and you can see my current machine here. But it's not going to use Greer's machine, could be here. I could have my boss's machine, any number of host machines as I like. Then you could either override an existing manual test or add a brand new test case as an automation. So let's see. Do you have an example? No, let's dive into a form. So I'll go to my automation section right here in the tool and go to add new. And as you can see, you work with certain agents right here at the box. Test Complete, our functional automation tool on the UI side, along with Ready API and SOAP UI for back and automated testing. From there, we also then have some slanted frameworks we work with, JUnit, NUnit, and TestNG, Java and C#. So we can definitely run a whole number of different types of automated test cases. But let's say, taking our Test Complete example, what we can do is set the timeout here, specify a certain project to run. Let's say this was like an NUnit, you would specify maybe your NUnit project file, or you're using TestNG, maybe you specify, or JUnit, you specify your Maven project, right? You do all that there. And then really the brunt of the integration is you're giving QAComplete either a file attachment, a zipped copy of your automated test or project, or you give it the file path to where your project or test cases live on your host machine. Now, the zipped copy option is useful if you don't have a shared drive to work off of. Maybe you're working in different time zones or different locations. You want to have stuff available over the cloud. zip copy might be a good way to do it, right? And then you might have to keep re-uploading the copy if you make changes, but not very hard to do that. But if you want to avoid doing that, you may want to use the file path option, because that way you can only change your test cases, or you only have to change your test cases in one place, and QAComplete will just run whatever is in that file path. So it won't matter. We don't care what your tests are doing, right? We're just going to care about the results. Which brings me to what we'll do with this automated integration. So maybe some of you are TestComplete users out there, or Selenium users. I have a sample Selenium script here. Oops, where am I going? There it is. Sample Selenium script. I have a sample TestComplete script. When I click play, QAComplete will then, over its API, launch the test agent on the specified host machine. So it does not have to be the machine locally we're using here for this demo. And then maybe Selenium or TestComplete or Ready API will launch and then run through the test cases as we've written them. And the beauty of the integration is that I'll get the pass-fail result back in the QAComplete. I'll get the runtime, who ran the test case, and even any kind of log that your automation tool generates. So for example, I can go here, I can go to my run history, my test case, and I can always see my run history in a more detailed manner by clicking my view run button, this little paper icon. And at least with the TestComplete integration, similar to Ready API or Selenium, I can see my report directly in my browser. And so this is really useful because I don't have to dive between all my testing tools individually and aggregate all my test results into one. I can get everything readily available in one tool at one point in time. So it's quicker for me to go ahead and report on this, track my execution results and see how much progress I'm making, so on and so forth. So with TestComplete, at least you see the nice screenshots you get from TestComplete here, and all available in the cloud. You also go ahead and download this and email it out, share it out, print out the log, so on and so forth. So that's running an automated test. We do have test schedules for running automated test cases in a schedule format. Think of this as similar to using Windows Scheduler to run your automated tests locally. You can do this to run on any number of different host machines, really expanding QAComplete's role as a execution hub and as also a place where it can retain information. So we can kind of do what Jenkins does there. Jenkins is definitely useful from a source control perspective. Anyway, I digress. I definitely went very comprehensively into test cases here. So I think a lot of people have, they generally, this is the main product tool people want to use. So I want to definitely cover how to create a manual test case, how to add an automated test case as well. In general, so I don't think I covered this in the beginning, and I want to stop for some questions now before I continue. You want to definitely use the add new button to add any records in any module. So not hard to do that. And for specifically a sub-release, you can view your hierarchical release, drill down, right, and then you can go ahead and create new ones that way. Anyway, so let's see. Let's take a short sec here. Are there any questions at all that we can answer? Please do ask, because I've definitely covered, I'd say 90% of the material I want to cover on a 101. And what I'll do now maybe is quickly run a manual test case, show some defects, but I definitely don't want to go too far and too high level because the intent of the class to be training and to really allow you to get started. So some in the audience have any specific questions that you haven't had answered or you're struggling with, or maybe something that's more advanced even, definitely use the time now if you'd like, and continuing as I talk to ask any questions you may have. All right, but in the meantime, for those of you who are not going to ask questions, let's go ahead and run a test case. So usually, I'll use test library to create, this is where I'm hosting my test cases. Think of it as a repository. So I want to maybe use and reuse my test cases in multiple different scenarios, right? So I can do so by using a test set. Test set is simply a referential grouping of test cases. Referential meaning that, think of them as pointers, right? I'm not storing the test case in a test set, I'm just calling it. So It's much like a method call in another function if you're writing code, for example. So think of, and really that's really what our test library is like. Think of it like code. Our test library is a function. The test set perhaps is a bigger function, right? It's just a grouping that calls more functions. Think of it like a playlist, right? And then both these items, right, have test results, right? So like a function, you have a series of inputs, then outputs. And so when I run a test case, I can create an instance of a run, right? An instance, let's say, of the running of the function. So that's how you want to view it. And some people ask us, hey, how can I tell when my test case is finished? And we say, well, check your run history. As you can see, we separate run history from our test sets and test library, because the idea is that the test library record is something that will continue living. You can have as many runs against it as you'd like. So if you want to check maybe completion, you could maybe search and query for runs based on a specific release and date that it's linked to, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and create a run. I'm going to go ahead and run a test set. Quickly how to create one. Again, add new. And a test set, when you're in the test tab, you want to go ahead and use the panel on the right, find test cases you want, and drag and drop as many as you'd like. You can certainly repeat test cases. That's not going to matter because it's my reference. So if you, let's say, want to run same test case 10 times in a row, maybe on different host machines, you totally go ahead and do that. All right. Let's go ahead and run a test case, or a test set rather. So quickly, if we've linked our test set and case to a release, I want to specify that release over here. And then we can go ahead and run our data, or run our test set, and get this run reported against that release. So now we're in our test runner. This is where we can see our entire test set, see all the test cases in the test set. And as soon as I click into one of the test cases, the run will start. This is an automated test run. I just have to click what is now pause run, but was start run. I just have to click that, and the automated test will run. And if it's local on my machine, then I definitely don't want to, let's say, maybe it's a front-end test. I don't want to touch my mouse and keyboard. So, QAComplete will be, test complete or Sunday will be doing things. But if it's running on different machines, I click start run, go to a new tab. QAComplete is a web-based tool. I can easily open new tabs, consuming a new license, and navigate and do some other work. So you can really do concurrent work this way, not having to, focus everything in a very sequential format. Anyway, running a test case is quite simple in QAComplete. You have your list of steps here. We'll select the first step for you, and you generally want to enter your actual results into this section over here. And we can do that by perhaps, maybe I say, I want to test I'm testing UI. I want to take a screenshot of UI I'm testing, right? So we could, take a little screenshot as we like. It's easy as copying and pasting a screenshot right into my result here. Or I could write some notes. I could upload a file attachment, et cetera, et cetera. And once I do that, I want to then go up here, click either pass, fail, block, or skip. Go ahead and do that. Test case. It goes ahead and transitions to the next step over here. You can use the quick pass button as well down there. You can also use the drop down to do the same thing, and so on and so forth. So we're basically allowing you multiple ways to execute this test case, along with putting in whatever data you feel is most relevant to that test case. From there, I could also go out to my test set and bulk pass, fail, block, or skip my entire test case from out here. Useful if, let's say, you know something's going to fail or pass. You don't want to waste time in individually selecting the individual steps. You just want to record or run. You can go ahead and do so. Very useful for, let's say, speeding up regression. I can also pause my run. It's late in the day. Gotta pick up the kids from soccer practice. You have a meeting. You want to go to lunch, right? We all understand. I definitely understand the lunch thing. I've been there, right? You want to be able to pause your work and then resume it later. You don't want to have to end your run and restart everything later. Something not in anyone's best interest. So pause for future, useful there. And in the case where I want to bulk mark steps and test cases with a certain status, I can use end run and do so. So I want to, let's say, fail a bunch of test cases I know are failing anyway. I can go ahead and perhaps run the ones I don't know about and bulk fail all of them at the end with end run. So again, we're really speeding up our manual test execution here if that's our goal, allowing us to get to other important tasks quicker, speeding up our entire testing process. So in the game of the game, I think as Greer said in the beginning, SmartBear's tools are designed to save you time and speed up your workflow as many different areas as possible. So in fact, let's fail. Let me let's not fail everything, but let's say I wanted to fail something right in a run here. Okay, I could fail something at a low level or at a top level. I click fail. We promptly create a defect, and it's useful to create defects on the fly. Create, brought to my defect form, which again can look like whatever you want. You can go to your custom fields, create your own fields, remove fields that you don't care about we give you. Again, your defect can look like whatever you want it to look like. And if we look at this, good useful field is the steps to reproduce field. We'll see each step here marked by its individual status. Of course, I failed at a top level, so all statuses are failed, but if I had a more nuanced failure, I could see it in context. Useful for people looking at the bug or developers to take a look at, right? Again, less manual handoff information, more getting more information in the necessary records to the right people. Also, for example, I created a little defect screenshot custom field. I may want to copy and paste, say, hey, we had a defect. Whoops, I guess I lost that. Huh. Anyway, where is my tool? There it is. I want to maybe say there's something wrong with the QAComplete logo. It's a little off center. I definitely don't love that. So I want to make sure it's included in my error, so on and so forth. But I might not have enabled the rich text supported media for this specific defect. That's probably what it is. Okay, makes sense. So my picture didn't copy over because in the back end, if you go to setup and you go to system options, you want to make sure that every single record type is checked off to allow rich text supported media. So that's important if you want to be able to, let's say, copy and paste images into a text field, so on and so forth. Otherwise, you will go ahead and embarrass yourself like I have just done. But that's all right. Let's keep going. What's really cool about this creating defect on the fly is that I'll be able to have my defect automatically linked to whatever my test is linked to, which is of course, the test set and release that it was associated with. So I get nice context with how my defect's been created, so I can report on this defect immediately. I can find it by a test case or test set I ran against. I can look at all the defects against my release. Again, because this is happening right away versus me having to go ahead and add it after the fact. Then I click submit, and whoops, that's on me. Good thing I don't actually work in QA. I'd be very good at it. Let's see. New. We'll click submit. So now my defect's been created, and I can see it in the defects module. So that's certainly what I want to do in this section, right? I can go ahead and create them in this way. And we have a question from Rob. So Rob says, can you export the defect to other systems? Yes, you can. So if you're using the Jira integration, right as I created that defect, it'll be created as a bug in Jira pretty much instantaneously. I can also always manually export my defects by going to the defects module. So let's end this run. Go to the defects module to answer your question. You can always go to tools, and I can manually export my defects out to an Excel or CSV file format. I can also use our API to extract the defects as well. And if it's just simply you want people to see them, you can email them out, and you can also print them out. So we give you a lot of ways to take those defects out of the tool. That's a good question. All right. Now, this is the defects module. Not much else for me to really say here that I haven't already said. Just again, I think, see all my badly named sample defects there. But as you can see, it's going to be the same kind of workflow as you'd have with other modules in QAComplete. I can organize my releases. I can go ahead and customize them for whatever I would like. And then again, I may want to link them. And I don't think I covered this, which is my apologies, but this is pretty important in QAComplete. Probably a good way to maybe wrap up this 101. So we talk about all of the different records here at a high level, right? Releases, requirements, test cases, and now defects. So how are we getting all of these going to be linked together, right? That's important for our reporting purposes. And reports, I mean, I could run some reports for you, but you want to kind of dive in there after you've linked your items together, which is definitely a good thing to end on. So you want to go ahead and use the linked items panel here in any record to link it to any other record in a tool. And click add, and I can link my defect, let's say, to a requirement or a test case or test set, so on and so forth, right? And I can link it to as many of these records as I'd like, and I can have as many non-unique links as well. So I can have the same defect linked to multiple test cases, or same test case linked to multiple defects, or release requirements, et cetera, et cetera. You can create whatever network of linked records you'd like. And there's two ways to do this. You can do this, or three ways really. I'm going to be very specific. There are two ways that you. I'd say there's one way I'm going to show you now, which is definitely the best way to do it. The other two ways are going to be directly using the linked item thing here, which is going to do on the fly, or using our API. You could also link items that way. But I probably want to use our bulk linking capability here. So what I can do, let's say releases someplace you may want to bulk link records to. Notice I have these set of icons here. And you also have them in every other record in the tool. Just if you don't see them, go to Tools and go to Choose Fields, and you'll be able to add them to the listing screen. It'll show you kind of what items you have linked, right? And so what you can do is then bulk link records. For example, if I'm linking releases, I can select what release I want to link to over here. Maybe I'll work on my Porzingis fan page release. I can say, okay, what do I want to link to it? Some defects, test sets, requirements. Let's link some defects to it. I know I had some errors. It'll show me the current two defects I've linked to it. And I can use this panel on the right to then bulk link my records together. So go ahead and find some defects over. Maybe I could filter on a certain item, so on and so forth. And this is really I like this way the best because I can choose what fields I want to search on, 5 to 3, right? And then I can really easily shift click multiple defects, just drag them over. Very quick way to add records and link them, let's say, to a release, or to link records together in general. So I could do this, let's say, from a test library section as well, or requirements. So for example, let's actually, I want to show you that just so people aren't confused later on how to do it. And then we'll end with this and some questions. But I could, let's say, go to my requirements module, right? Again, I think you have to go to choose fields to make sure these little numerical fields show up. You can hover over and it'll show you number of like configurations, defects, et cetera, et cetera. And I can click any of this, right? Let's say with defects, right? Or maybe I want to say, where's test cases? Here we go. I can click the number and it'll bring me to the same kind of screen. I can see my requirement that I want to link to, the types of records I want to link to that requirement, what's currently linked, and then what I want to maybe search for. Last way to do this is in test cases. It's going to mimic the same way I've showed you right now in the new UI when it's coming out relatively soon. But just for those of you I'm sure using the tool today, quickly in the old UI, you want to go to Actions dropdown, and you want to click Show Traceability. It's going to bring you to a little graduated view here, but you want to then click Link Items, that link there, and then it'll bring you to the same kind of screen. So I think that's the last little useful feature for this 101, a little more of an advanced thing, but show you how to bulk link records. That's then another way to nicely get started so that everything's not going to be working at a snail's pace. And in general, I'm going to end this webinar here and ask any questions, please, that you may have. We want to definitely think about what workflow works best for you, what you're currently doing that you like, what you want to improve upon, and then you can mold QAComplete to fit that standard, right? So you want to figure out, or perhaps make sure you are aware and know what your release workflow is, and I'm sure all of you are, so you can then define that into the tool. Know how you want to use the requirements, what requirements link to what records, like test cases or releases, maybe what you want them, what kind of data you want them to have as well. So then again, it allows you to dive in immediately, build those custom fields out, take out the fields you don't want right away, and then do the same thing for test cases. And then finally, when you link the records together, you can use that bulk link feature I just showed you to quickly associate records to one another. And then finally, take advantage of our reporting options. So then you could use our various canned reports we have, which are pretty self-explanatory to use, or even our live dashboards here to create effect. So you can get finally a dashboard like a test runs by requirement. You can add it via the click Add Dashboard Charts button. You have some canned dashboards here. But this dashboard was made, basically by entering all data in these records above, right? I have test cases that are linked to requirements. I can see that runs against those requirements. We're filtered on by a specific release that I've linked to. Again, these are all my own custom names, my own custom structure, custom link types. And then again, I can go ahead and easily create this report by easily achieving all of that. So that's, I think, a good way to at least get started in QAComplete, try to cover all of the high-level modules here and perhaps what to do in them, what are the most important features. But of course, there could be a lot to talk about. Definitely could be here all day, but we definitely have some other things to do.
Thanks so much, everyone.